I assume you had maybe a full practice today. What would you try to get accomplished headed into 3 home games?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us, prep for Golden State certainly, and then continuing to build, like continuing to build, like reintegrate C into some of our actions offensively and defensively. Again, continuing to get first 2 days of looks with her and Ari on the floor at the same time, what that looks like, what actions we like, and then reintegrating her into what we need to do on the defensive end.
Just with reintegrating Caitlin, do you anticipate her to be available tomorrow?
I anticipate, if there's no setbacks, after today, I anticipate her being available, yes.
Steph, what have you seen out of the group without her that kind of, as you start this reintegration process, you've learned about this group since Caitlin with the 8 or 9 rotation you played?
Yeah, first and foremost, our defensive energy and effort had been really good. Our mobility, our activity level, our ability to execute schemes for the most part had been really good. We've had defensive versatility. And I loved offensively how the ball's moving, how multiple players are getting touches. We're moving it side to side. We're getting high percentage looks. And that's part of just conversations as C gets back on the floor. It's, hey, look at what we were doing really well, making sure that there's a high attention to detail for that. I thought, particularly on the defensive end, prior to her initial injury, she was good on the defensive end. She was really solid for us on the defensive end. We need that from her. And her ability now, I think, with Ari on the floor to be able to play some off the ball, maybe take some pressure off, not as demanding when she's being hounded 94 feet, and to try to get her some high percentage looks off the ball as much as with the ball in her hands.
I get some sense you get a lot of input out of her. She's been on the bench here. Has there been kind of one thing that stands out that she keeps seeing, that keeps kind of coming as the back and forth between the two of you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just things that she's seeing that defenses are starting to try to take away. Where our openings are, what some of our actions are that we can get good looks in. You do see it differently when you're on the sideline, and then when you're not actively engaged in going through it in the game. So hopefully she can carry some of that over, put her little coaching, I know she put her GM hat on before, now put her coaching hat on when she gets out there and recognize it in live action.
You know what day specifically DD will be back?
I feel like DD's getting back into town today, and should be around tomorrow.
Steph, you played 5 and 7 days
Yeah.
in this point in the season. How do you kind of handle a stretch like this now differently than maybe you would in the earlier part of the season?
Well, I think we, mentally we have to be better. We just finished 9 and 18, and then we're playing 5 and 7. It's just the nature of the beast of where we are. So I think our mental acuity has to be high. We've got to be able to not go through, if we don't have time to go through everything on the floor, we've got to be able to lock in mentally. And then I think we, now reintegrating C, getting DD back, now we have a couple more players, so our rotation's a little bit deeper. So for us as a staff, we might not have to go longer periods of time with the same rotation, get them in and out a little bit quicker, try to stay fresh, or as fresh as possible.
Did you learn any more about Caitlin's gravity that she has when she's out there and how this might open things up, just because defenders keen on her and opening things up from what you've seen from your current group over the last
Yeah, I think certainly, especially if she's off the ball, she's going to draw attention. So if she's in action off the ball, or even if she's spacing the floor off the ball, she's going to open up things for everybody else. When she has the ball in her hands, you almost use her as bait sometimes because of the way that teams are going to play her, and be able to get it out and get it to the backside and get some high percentage shots. She's a willing passer, and so she's somebody who makes her teammates better instinctually just by being on the floor. But I think the gravity of her ability to score and now our ability to use her off the ball will open up the paint for our downhill drivers.
What's impressive about Aaliyah this last stretch?
Yep.
They found another level here in the last month or so.
Yeah, she's been great. I think the biggest thing for us is how we use her. We use her as a hub. She's really embraced that role. So you see her facing up a lot more, going into DHOs, using some of her keeps, playing off the move. Primarily in year 1, it was like back to the basket. Primarily in year 2, it was in the 2-man with Caitlin. And now we're utilizing her in a lot of different ways as a facilitator as much as a scorer. And I think it's opening up her game, and she's really embraced it. That's it. Thank you, guys.
QB tomorrow?
Sorry, what was that?
QB tomorrow?
Oh gosh, it'd be nice. It's a tiny football. You could chuck it a mile long.
What have these last few days felt like for you leading into tomorrow's game?
Yeah, I think it's just nice to get back out there and get to the flow of playing with my teammates again, and it's gonna be fun to get back out there hopefully and just feel things again. I think I don't know what type of minutes I'm going to get will look like, but just when I'm out there, like compete, play hard. This is going to be a team that's going to be moving constantly. So just being aware and active, bring energy. I think that's obviously hard sitting out and watching for a few weeks. So I'm definitely excited to get back out there.
Steph said yesterday you're not a fan of minutes restrictions. How do you anticipate all that actually going when you play more?
Yeah, I hope to play a decent amount, maybe upper 20s. I guess it just depends how I feel and how the game goes and, what the team needs as well. But, I feel pretty good, but probably going to try not to overdo it as well and put myself in a good position moving forward.
Caitlin, Steph talked about you having your coach's hat on during this stretch. Is there a
Yeah.
particular thing or things you find yourself looking at most often while you've been watching?
I try to notice as much as I can. I think, when we're successful, it really starts on defense for us. I think when we're disruptive, when we're up in passing lanes, defending hard, active hands, things like that, I think that's what leads to us being really good offensively. I think that's what led to our 2 games where we beat the Lynx and beat the Aces, and I think we lacked in that area versus the Sparks. We kind of just let them do whatever they want to. I thought we were a step behind, so I think that has to be intentional for our group going forward, is like we have to be a step ahead of everything, and that just comes down to knowing personnel and knowing our scout and, being very intentional in that, and I think that's kind of where the coaches have challenged us too.
How has Aries' addition kind of changed that vibe with this defensive group?
Yeah, she's as active as they come. She's going to be aggressive. She's going to pressure you. She's going to have her hands in passing lanes. She's going to cause a little bit of havoc out there, and I think that's exactly what we need. And she's going to pick up pole, and I know that well. She guarded me a couple times last year, so I think she's been tremendous for us, honestly.
Caitlin, how much are you just looking forward to being on the court with Ari?
Yeah, I think it'll be great. Obviously, I haven't played a game with her, I don't think, at least. She's kind of been here when I've been out, so I think it'll be great. I think it'll be nice to play with another point guard who can, read the floor really well and, get me to come off a few screens rather than, just playing out a ball screen mostly. And, we're still going to do a lot of that and play in transition and all that, but when we have an opportunity to run me off some screens, and I think that just gives the defense another thing they have to plan for, and we're not, as predictable as we may have been earlier in the season. So try some of that, but I think it'll be a lot of fun.
How much did you enjoy celebrating that cup with? We saw all the videos, but what was that celebration like for you? With your teammates?
Just really proud of my team, honestly. They went in there and they believed that they could win, and they prepared that they could win, and that's exactly what they did. I thought, we dictated defensively, and that's a really, really hard place to play. I don't think the Lynx have lost there yet because that game didn't count, so they're technically undefeated at home, and it's one of the hardest places to play, and that's not just the past years. That's over the course of the Lynx franchise. They've always dominated their home court, so especially to go in there on that type of game with that type of high stakes, I'm really proud of our group, so it was fun celebrating with all of them.
Steph has talked about kind of taking some pressure off you with Ari kind of running point in some actions and you playing off the ball. Just how do you think that will help when you reintegrate onto the court?
Yeah, it'll be nice probably not to have to bring the ball up against pressure 94 feet, but like I said, that's what I'm best at, so we're still going to do a lot of that. I think finding a balance and finding the ways to give the defense different looks, and me becoming a better screener and being a good screener and coming off of screens and screening for Kels and all that different type of stuff, that's a whole nother layer of things that the other team has to prepare for. So like I said, I feel like it makes us less predictable, and you're still going to see a lot of the same things that we do, but at times move us off the ball, and especially out of timeouts and drops, maybe not so much our live flow and our live play. I think we'll be solid.
Given that you never really missed time, has this been one of the more difficult stretches of your playing career?
For sure, no doubt about it. I think it's been challenging mentally, just staying in it, and you're way more busy when you're hurt than when you're coming in and all you do is scout film and come out here and walk through things. So I'm in here hours and hours on hours trying to get my body right and do everything I can to put myself in a position to be available the rest of the year, and that's certainly my goal, and I feel good about that. And but yeah, it's definitely challenging. I think it's been so challenging because I've never been through it before. So just giving myself grace as I continue to come back and get my feet under me. And but I think it's also been like an amazing opportunity for myself too, and allowed me to learn a lot. And I think when we get to the end of the year and get here in the playoffs, I think this is gonna be a moment where I can look back on and be really proud of myself for everything that I went through and how I've dealt with it.
Caitlin, you've been on the JW before.
Yeah.
What do you think now that you've seen the finished product for this?
It's enormous. It's a little overwhelming. I mean, you look up there, it's pretty big, but it's certainly cool. And I've said this before. I'm like, anytime you get on the JW Marriott in like Indianapolis, it's like a huge deal. Like, that's prime real estate for ads. But yeah, it's certainly really cool. And you know, we're obviously really excited to have All Star. And I guess everybody got to watch ESPN or WNBA Countdown tonight to see my team. I know my team, but I'm not gonna say anything yet. So